if I could borrow you guys for just a few minutes. It was 10 years ago on a Saturday during football practice. Practice ended, my coaches said, hey, let's all get on one knee like football players do. We're all on one knee and we look at our coach and he says, hey, there's a hurricane coming in town. I want you guys to be safe Sunday and we're going to be back at practice Monday. Not realizing that this hurricane would forever change our lives. And many of you guys remember it. Some of you might be a little too young and you remember it vaguely. But this hurricane, well, her name was Katrina. And she destroyed my city. She took away everything I loved. She took away my childhood. You guys can look back and some of you can say, well, I went to Magnet and I went to Ridgewood and I went to, you could reflect back on your high schools and your elementary and all your friends that you had back then. And with the power of social media, once you graduate, you'll still be able to connect with your friends. Katrina took away my community, everything I loved. And not only did she take away my community, she took the lives of so many people and the lives of people that I actually love. And so as I begin to look at this subject of the storms of life, it's like, what can possibly come out from a storm? What good can come out of a storm? A deadly thing that's just taking the lives of people, taking memories away, destroying buildings, destroying neighborhoods. What can go good out of it? Before that hurricane ever happened, I met a guy named John Smith who led me to Jesus. And one day, during a prayer meeting, some of you may or may not believe this, but I'm just telling you how the story happened. He said, Melvin, I believe that God is calling you to travel the nations. He's calling you to go from nation to nation to nation. There was a map, and he pointed to it, and he pointed from one place to another place to another place. And I was 16 years old when that happened, and I believed him. And so this hurricane would happen, and I would end up having to stay at home because, we didn't take it seriously. We'd had so many of these things before. We didn't think it was going to destroy us. I stayed at home. I didn't travel. I didn't run from the hurricane. And the next day the water would rise, and it would rise. And people would break into stores and they would loot. And can you really blame them? Because there is some tough circumstances at this moment. There's no food. What water are you going to drink? And finally, we decided that the water's getting too high, and if we stay here a little bit longer, we're probably going to die. The airplanes can't come down and give us any help because there's so many power lines. And the most strangest, amazing thing happened. A local drug dealer, somebody who thought was evil and hurtful and harmful, well, he broke in to a store and he took a truck and he drove around that neighborhood with water being so high, and he made sure that he could save everybody he could, and he took us as far as he could close to the Superdome, and we ended up going into the Superdome after walking through that water. And once we're in the Superdome, you feel as if there might be a little bit of hope. You begin to lose hope and lose faith because as you walk into the bathrooms and you see that the waters don't flush, and you're walking around and you're seeing people crying and hurting, and it's been days and now people haven't been able to take baths, and you're hearing rumors of rapes and babies, and sorry for being so graphic, but I'm letting you know what happened. I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm beginning to lose this faith. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm laying on that Superdome grass, that turf, and I'm looking up because I can't sleep, and everybody else around me, my family, are sleeping. And then all of a sudden, I hear noise, and I hear a body of people rushing and moving, and all I'm looking at are people running towards my way, screaming, watch out, help. And I'm hearing gunshots, and then all of a sudden, I'm running, and I'm making a decision. Do I grab my mom? Do I grab my grandmother? Do I grab my little sister? What can I do? And I go and I run and I grab my mom, and she grabs my little sister, and I pull them to the side, and my little sister lets go of my mom because she's only 10 years old, and the grip, she couldn't grip too tight. And I remember arguing with my mom saying, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get her. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get her. And my mom said, no, we have to go back and get her. So we run back and we get her. And then we finally get to a safe place. And my heart is racing and my heart is pounding. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I supposed to travel from nation to nation when I feel like today is the day that I'm going to die? Today is the day that I'm going to lose hope. Well, there is no more hope. Because they're treating us so inhumanely. They're throwing gas cans so that they can move us from one building to the other. Stuff that people didn't tell you about Katrina. But then I had to make a decision right then and there. Am I going to believe what I believed before that God had promised me? Or am I going to lose faith at this moment and allow the circumstances that I'm seeing break me down and weaken me? These are not normal circumstances. These are the circumstances where people really lose hope. When people are around you and they're dying and they're catching seizures and you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know where any of your friends are and there is no school because the school is underwater and you don't know where you're going to live because your house is gone and you don't have any money in your pocket and you guys and your family is not that rich. These are life-moving circumstances. At this moment, you don't care about that girl who dissed you at school, who didn't like you, didn't give you that attention. At this moment, you're not trying to hold on to bitterness that you had with your friend because of some I'm going to use the word crap that happened between you and them. All that foolishness ceases and only the essentials matter at this point. And I said, I choose to believe that I will not die because the Lord has made me a promise. The Bible says that God's word will never return to him void. Once he says it, it's done. How much time do I have, bro? I need to know. 10 minutes. 10 minutes? It never returns void. And that day I choose to believe that I was going to live and that I was going to make it through. And I did. And we did. My family did. And there are so many more details to the story that I will tell you guys another time being, if I'm given the time to do so. But I want to take you to a story that we briefly mentioned. I actually briefly mentioned this last Wednesday and thought, wow, that's great. That's what I'm going to talk about at Southwood. The Bible says in Matthew, it's actually in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I'm going to read from Matthew. Matthew 8, verse 23 says, as he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. Suddenly a violent storm arose on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waters. But he, talking about Jesus.
First priority now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Cox, can you send Tristan down to me for just a second?
Sure will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. Suddenly a violent storm arose on the sea, so the boat was being swamped by waves. But he was asleep, talking about Jesus. So the disciples came and woke him up, saying, Lord, save us. We're going to die. One version says, Lord, don't you care? We're going to die. But he said to them, why are you fearful, you of little faith? Then he got up and he rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. The men were amazed and they asked, what kind of man is this? Even the winds and the sea obey him. Some of you guys are like me. You have been given a promise by God. And it might not have been this promise that comes from a pastor like what mine did. Your promise might be some of the things you know in this Bible. I will never leave you or forsake you. You understand that everything that comes out of his lips is pretty much a promise because the Bible says God is not man that he should lie. He cannot lie. So if he says it, it's truth. It's almost a promise. You can cash it. It says that one day Jesus told him, hey, let's get on this boat. It said the disciples followed him. And their goal on this boat was to get to the other side. The Sea of Galilee. 13 miles long, 8 miles wide. wide. They get on this boat with Jesus, and they're following him, and all is good, and all is well. And they joyfully get on this boat, and now they begin to sail. And sometime in between the moment when they started and the moment where they arrive, a storm began to formulate. As the storm begins to form, it begins to blow the winds. The waters begin to move and rock the boat. The waters begin to come into the boat. And the thunders, they hear it, it's everywhere. And the disciples at this moment are shaken up. Shaken up that in Mark they said, Lord, don't you care? We're about to die. We don't understand why you told us that we were going to go to the other side, and we followed you. And in following you, you have led us in the midst of this storm. But the Bible says that he was asleep. That he was sleeping. And so here they are. Jesus is asleep. And they're freaking out. And they're looking at Jesus' calmness as his absence. Some of us, in our lives, we're going through storms and the winds are blowing and the water is moving our boats back and forth and we don't understand what's going, and the winds and the water is pouring so much that we can't really see what's ahead of us, and we begin to think, God, where are you? Or why are you asleep? Why are you not awake on my behalf doing something? Because that's human nature. I'm in the middle of the Superdome and everything inside of me wants to say, God, you are a liar. You did not keep your promise. You did not protect me. I am going to die right here in the middle of this mess. But in all actuality, if they would have just had faith and realized, oh my gosh, he has the ability to sleep even when the winds are blowing and the waves are washing us away and it looks like something's going to happen. His posture of being asleep, the posture that he's in, is not one that we should believe he's absent. Because he is asleep, because he is resting, our confidence should be in that our God is able and strong and powerful, and the winds do not scare him, and the waves do not move him, and the thunder is not going to disturb him because he reigns over it all. And the Bible says that when he woke up, that's exactly what he did. He said, bruh, why is you tripping? Storm cease. Some translations, as you go deeper, it says that word cease is interchangeable with the word muzzle. And it says that he talked to the storm as if it was just an animal. Basically, shut up. You don't see that dog? Okay. He calmed the storm. Guys, my encouragement to you as I close is this. Everybody in life will go through a storm. If you haven't been, you will. But you who are believers and you who know God, know that he made a promise that you are going to make it to the other side. And if Jesus said that you're going to make it to the other side, you are going to make it to the other side. And in moments where the wind is blowing and everything seems scary and the lightning is striking and you don't know what to do, those moments where your mom and your dad, they're in that divorce. Those moments when you got to deal with the past issues of molestation that you might have dealt with. He's still there in the midst of that storm. Those moments when you look back at the